I think from my observation, the infrastructure in Africa, I mean, the mobile internet infrastructure has been greatly improved. Secondly, we met with some government officials, so I think that they are quite pro fintech, and they are making policies to promoting the use of fintech and promoting the usage of the fintech to drive financial inclusion. And also we met some terrific and fantastic entrepreneurs as well. So I'm very promising with Africa. So and I think I'm really looking forward to do something by working together with them. So I know when we discuss with them, we found basically we have a found out that one of the challenges for them is to really creating jobs for the whole society, for the whole economy in the next few years. But in terms of which sector can contribute to the job creation, which is primarily SMEs. But how can you support SMEs? I mean, financing is a very core pillar to supporting SMEs, to help them to survive, to develop, to creating jobs. So we have another discussion with them, talking about using digital technology to promoting the inclusive finance, promoting uncontextualized loans to the SMEs to help them to develop. So I think there is a vast potential of these kind of things there. So just like what we do in Southeast Asia and in South Asia, you know, we're really looking forward to partnership with them to help drive financial inclusion there. Very briefly, I want to also share that, you know, when we're talking about the financial inclusion, I mean, among other key success factors, and I mean, lack of talents is one critical factor to supporting that. So we have now discussion with FCS on this topic as well. So just yesterday, we have been thinking that for a long time. You know, from our experience, when we developed starting 14 years ago, every year, I guess we starting maybe 12 years ago, every year we hire a lot of newly graduates, several hundreds. We training them, you know, we develop them by putting them in the battle. And also from our experience by working together with our partners in Southeast Asia, you know, we found it's always in the bottleneck is there really about the talents. So basically I sent, for example, we have India partners, so I sent 80 people to there, work for 2 years. I sent 40 people to Indonesia, our partner, our Dana is here. We've sent a lot of people working there. But I think it's not enough. In order to help all the local developing countries to drive the digital economy, we think can we do more beyond that, not just between our ecosystem partners. So we have been thinking this for a few years. So recently we come up with the idea that we wanted to do initial a program which is called a 10 times 1,000 Tech for Inclusion program. So we want to work together with the IFC. Every year want to train 1,000 the tech talents for the digital, for the developing countries. So we want to keep it doing for 10 years. So because we know for digital economy, I mean, this is not about one company, it's not about one ecosystem, it's about everyone. We have more participants join this journey. So we initiate that, and we are very proud to work together with IFC, want to drive that forward to really can contribute to the human capital, contribute to driving the financial inclusion and the sustainable development across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. So we heard about empowerment architecture for data. We heard about 10 for 1,000 tech for inclusion program. So I think it's getting, you know, more and more exciting as we go. Very good. So I want to bring us back home while we're here to hear from the experience of Indonesia. And I'd like to ask Mr. Muhammad Farjin Rashid, who is CFO of Bukalapak. We look forward to hearing from you about your experience. I think Bukalapak now is one of the leading online marketplace in Indonesia. What are the key elements that made that success? What are the challenges? What can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Fajrin. I'm delighted to be here sharing each other experience in this digital economy roundtable. So Bukalapak was started about 2010, so about 8 years ago, with a vision to actually improve Indonesian economy, especially small, medium enterprises. We started through online marketplace. It's an open platform where, as a platform, you can buy and sell anything in the platform. Currently, we have about 50 million users, and as an open marketplace platform, anyone can actually sell or become a merchant in Bukalapak. So this is, I think, first point that I want to highlight. So this is actually a real example of a sharing economy, where now the access of economy, right now, you can actually sell anything to anyone into the platform, not just limited to big businesses. With 4 million merchants available in the platform nowadays, a lot of merchants are actually small businesses or even individuals. So we're talking about not just improving the life of the existing merchants who previously sold something offline, but now is added through technology into online. But we're also talking about creating new type of entrepreneurs, people who before had no job, people like students, people who didn't have income, now suddenly can become entrepreneurs, can have an income through selling in our platform. So that's the first point I want to highlight. And we are happy to work with the government on this, because this is something that we didn't expect, that when we started Bukalapak, was that these SMEs are actually forming what they call a communities of merchants. So we are present in over 100 cities where these communities of merchants are formed. So if you are merchants in the platform, you actually will gather with each other, the merchants in the city, to share each other experiences. So it's not like big business who sometimes don't want to share story to each other because of the confidential information, but these are the small businesses who are willing to share each other experiences because they believe that they want to grow together by learning from each other experiences. Good morning, Pak Rudiantara.
Good morning. Sorry, I was interrupted by Melinda Gates and Pak Jokowi.
So yeah, so we're working with the government, with a lot of ministries, including Ministry of Pak Rudiantara, in essentially creating more merchants through this ecosystem, through these communities. So our merchants who are already success in selling something in Bukalapak, they share the stories, their experience with a lot of SMEs initiatives that is initiated by the government. So then the snowball effect becomes larger, and more SMEs are impacted. I mentioned that we have 4 million merchants in the platform, but in Indonesia, where more than 90% of the economy is based on the SMEs, we actually have more than 60 million SMEs. So there are still a lot of homework to be done. There are still a lot of challenges. There are still a lot of opportunities that can be expanded. Because as big as it is nowadays, Indonesian e-commerce system, the reality is only 10% of population who have bought online. So 90% of the people are actually still not online savvy yet in terms of buying and selling. So they are probably online, but what they are doing is merely doing social media or watching online videos, which brings us to the second point, is that how can we tap into this 90%? So what we are doing recently in the last 1 year is actually expanding not just from online marketplace, but actually also expanding into offline ecosystem as well. So we're talking about traditional stores, traditional mom and pop stores, or in Indonesia we call it warung, to be our partner as well. So we are now have 300,000 of warungs, 300,000 traditional mom and pop stores who become our partner, who become our channels when connecting from online through offline, so that now people who are not online savvy yet can actually buy online through these traditional mom and pop stores. And we're looking forward to work together with the government on these initiatives of Warung. Because this is what we call, the second point that I want to highlight is workforce digitalization. This is a form where you, before, if you have a traditional mom and pop stores, you can only do so much with your limited space, maybe 2 by 2 meters. But now with the online, you suddenly can reach out, you can suddenly fulfill your services, not just noodles, coffee, or cigarettes, but now you can actually offer the offline customers much more, many other things, like plane ticket, train tickets. People are actually now indeed buying plane ticket in traditional mom and pop stores. So that's the second point I want to highlight. The third point is also because of this online, offline ecosystem, we're talking about the financial inclusion. Now, suddenly, this traditional mom and pop store can actually become sort of a branchless banking, offering more financial services, not just to themselves, but also to their existing neighborhood as well. People who are not touched by the banking or current financial institutions, but now with these initiatives, we can actually tap them because we have all the historical data that might be beneficial when we are doing credit scoring or other things related with the financial. And in these initiatives, we're also, again, working with the government, especially on what insight can we learn from this and what are the regulations that can be implemented based on this insight. So that's why we're happy that we are always asked to discuss with the government before they create any regulations related with the industry. So thank you for that, Pak Rudiantara. So I think that's sort of like the 3 points I want to highlight as a starting point. Look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very interesting discussion about online, offline ecosystem. That's very nice. And great also to see the importance of insight from experience helping policy process. So thank you so much for your help. It is my pleasure to invite His Excellency Minister Rudiantara, Minister of Communication Information Technology of Indonesia. Delighted to have a sectoral minister to talk to us about digital economy. Your country, Mr. Minister, has so much to share with the rest of the world, especially when it comes to connectivity, given the difficult geographic configuration. So we're very interested to hear from you, your experience, your vision about digital economy for your country. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. We heard the voice of the players in Indonesia. Actually, he is my mentor. He was the one who taught me to develop the regulatory framework toward this digital economy things. Anyway, the government of Indonesia has learned and has investigated for the last 2-3 years why the Gini ratio in the world is worsening. 1% of population now dominating 50% of the global wealth. Compared to the 3 years ago, 1% dominated only 47% global wealth. So the Gini ratio, the gap is getting widening. We do believe that the digital economy will able to close the gap. It's not fully closed, at least not to maintain, not to become the widening anymore. Why? By introducing the digital economy, will introducing the workforce digitization. I do believe that Fajri already shared with us. I'll take an example for another application in Indonesia because Fajri running the marketplace application. Gojek, the ride hailing is no more the ride hailing right now. It's already a lifestyle. In the early stage of introducing the service around 7-8 years ago, they only have 50 drivers, motorcycle drivers. But right now, they have more than 1 million drivers throughout the country. and the driver is not belong to the company. The motorcycle is not belong to the company, but motorcycle belong to the driver. One is workforce digitalization. Second, sharing economy. Provide an economic activities to the people. And the third one is financial inclusion. And what the government has to do, what we are doing, at least my ministry, we are no longer act as the regulators. I spend less than 50% of my time only dealing with the regulations. Now we have to act as facilitator, and furthermore, to act as an accelerator. To facilitator is to facilitate the younger generations, the millennials like Fajrin, like Bukalapak, like Gojek, like Traveloka, whoever it is. By the way, we have thousands of startups that we have to facilitate. And we have also to facilitate. Can we flip it into the Palaparing map, please? Here we are. This is an affirmative action taken by the government, by President Jokowi. We are people who lives in Bali, in Jakarta, in the big city in Indonesia, or traveling in those cities, are enjoying the luxury of 4G. We can get the throughput 7 megabit per second. But our family, our friends who lives in the outskirts of Indonesia, in the eastern part of Indonesia, they only enjoy 300 kilobit per second, 1/23. Yeah. Yet they have to pay more per megabit delivered. That is not fair. So that's why we took an affirmative policy, and we have a plan. It's quite ambitious plan, though, that by 2019, next year, there will be no more single region or major city in the country that are not connected by the broadband backbone. The status right now on the Western Pack, already in operation since March. The Central Pack will be in operations next month. And the Eastern part, this is the most challenging one, construction will be completed by December this year. So by next year, we will integrate all of this backbone and connected the whole region and major city, around 514 region and major cities throughout the road. Now, this will ensure that people has an access to the digital infrastructure to address three things that I mentioned earlier, which is to create workforce digitization and sharing economy and increase the financial inclusions. Next year's, we are aiming to reach the 75% level of financial inclusion. From infrastructure point of view, we'll make sure that we will able even to push beyond 75%. The issue right now is how are going to structure the financial inclusion. How about the mobile payment as well as fintech in this country? Still, there is a debate. If all of us were in the Bali fintech agenda yesterday, our presidents clearly mentioned that we have to ease the regulation. And that is the way we put ourselves with the roles of facilitator. Even further than that, we would like also to put the role as the facilitator. One of the indicative is the unicorn. Indonesia, we have 4 unicorn out of 7 unicorn in ASEAN. Yeah, we have thousands of startup, and this is a proper startup that has gone through the incubation process, acceleration process, not like this one. We have only 4. Our objective by next year, at least we have 5 unicorns. So that's why government acts as a matchmaker, not only government, but with the ecosystem, with the people like Fajrin and the Nadim, which is the founder of the unicorn. We team up, and how can we create the next unicorn? By performing the role of matchmaking between the curated startup in Indonesia and the global venture capitals. I think this is the government has to change mindset. I'm not saying that Indonesia is perfect. I'm not saying that Indonesia is the best example, but at least this is something that we can share to the other part of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Very, very nice sharing the experience, talking about inclusion, talking about the importance of making sure that everybody has the same opportunity. This is something very dear to our hearts in the World Bank, where shared prosperity is one of our twin goals. and the role of the state as a facilitator, accelerator. Thank you so much for sharing. So we get to our third part of the program. This is an open discussion. Many of you have already expressed their interest to get the floor, and we'll try as much as possible to accommodate everyone and staying within the concept of shared prosperity. So if each one gets no more than 2 minutes, we can accommodate as many as possible from people around the table. So I'd like to start by asking Ms. Reina Beges, Vice Minister for International Cooperation of the Netherlands. We would like to hear from you, reactions, experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you also to the former speakers and giving those inspiring examples from Indonesia and India. I think they are really asking our attention, and we want to build on them. For us, the Netherlands, the operationalization of Pillar 6 of the Digital Development Partnership of the World Bank Group, mainstreaming digital services, solutions and platforms, is our focus for our development strategy. And the new initiative of the digital economy for all will create an enabling environment at country level and enable countries to build and further build digital economies. Technological transformation, including digitalization, is an international phenomenon that affects all areas of society and economy. New technological advances, specifically digitalization, can help tackle international challenges. For example, using digital technologies to better monitor the quality of hospitals can lead to reduction in infant mortality, or can inform farmers on weather forecasts and so increase their yields. Opportunities lie in unlocking the economic potential of countries outside of traditional flows of goods and services by allowing them to access world markets in a much easier and cheaper way. For instance, selling products or digital services from Kenya through e-commerce, which especially provides opportunities for women and small and medium enterprises. That's why we, the Netherlands, is going to put more emphasis on fostering innovation for development by using and stimulating digital technologies. And we hope to work together on this through our very recently started initiative IT for Development at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And however positive and with enormous potential, I also think the most challenging risks are associated with technological transformation. An increase in inequality within and among countries as a result of the digital divide, and the abuse of digital technologies by governments to constrain freedom of citizens or companies through, for example, data localization requirements. However, we want to be ambitious and to be a frontrunner in the field of innovations and digital development, both in international development as in foreign trade. We recognize that opportunities for digitalization and technological innovation provide for development and international trade, yet also understands risks related to privacy and cybersecurity. It's changing the development field. It harnesses opportunities to achieve the sustainable development goals. But we also need to be aware and mitigate challenges and risks, for example, widening the digital gap. We have much to learn and investigate to fully comprehend and utilize opportunities. We want to continue exploration and cooperation with and between nations, private sector, and civil society, because only then, I think, we can achieve a change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vice Minister, and thank you for highlighting the risks, which are also an important element as we think about digital economy. Thank you very much for that. I'd like now to invite Mr. Shardul Seth, CEO and co-founder of AgroStar, to talk to us about how digital development can impact rural livelihood. And this is an important area for many of our clients, how we get agriculture to the next level of digital development.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Shahidul. I'm one of the co-founders of AgroStar. Ours is a young startup out of India. Over the last 5 years, we've built a digital platform for farmers, and we connect to them through our voice and through our mobile app. In 4 years, we have now connected with over 500,000 farmers. We help them with their basic needs for their farm, stuff that they need to grow better crops like seeds, crop protection, crop nutrition, all of that delivered to their doorstep. I think that the nice thing about our platform, and I think where digital economy is impacting the farming community in India tremendously, is today a farmer in the remotest part of the country has a disease or has a problem on his crop. He can take a picture, upload it on our app, and in real time get that question answered through some of the best agronomists in the country, and then get that solution delivered. In the offline world, this was pretty much impossible, and we are seeing that happen every single day. So very excited to deliver more. And we're just getting started. In about a year, we've been able to get close to 500,000 farmers on the platform. And I think we're still only part of the country, so a lot more to be done.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask His Excellency Nikolai Astrup, Minister of International Development of Norway, to share with us the Norwegian experience. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. And let me first say that I'm really inspired by the presentations that have been made so far, not least from the private sector, but also by the commendable expediency of the Indonesian strategy and the rolling out of that. So, but the private sector, I think, is going to be crucial. We will not be able to create a digital economy for all without partnership with the private sector. So I'm really happy to see that so many private companies are here today sharing their experiences. I think digital tools has the power to transform societies and also empower individuals. And we need to look at how we can use new collaborative models or models of cooperation to unlock that potential. Now, I'm a member of the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation, and this is exactly what we will be looking at. And I'll take the insightful comments that I get here back to the panel and share them with my fellow panel members. One of the things I'm interested in is digital public goods. And I was particularly inspired by Infosys' presentation of what they've done in India. And there are many good examples of open source digital public goods that imply that every country doesn't have to invent the wheel on their own. They can collaborate and work on each other's inventions and experiences, and make sure that as many people are included as possible in the digital transformation. And I think that is going to be absolutely crucial if we are to achieve our ambition of leaving no one behind. And especially, I think we have the possibility to empower girls and women in particular. Norway has just launched a new digital strategy for our development policy, which means that we will integrate a digital component and a digital perspective in all aspects of our development policy. And we're doing that because we think that we can increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our policies, but also because of the huge potential for countries to leapfrog going forward. So what we know, we talked about connectivity earlier today, and there's been made huge progress there, but still, according to GSMA, although 65% of those living in sub-Saharan Africa live in an area with broadband coverage, only 22% are users. So we need to look at the barriers for individuals as well. So we need to still press on the infrastructure, but also look at the actual access to that infrastructure going forward. And we look forward to working with the bank on this, and from 2019 we will support the Digital Development Partnership going forward, and we think the bank has a huge role to play in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yes, building on each other's success is a very important element. So I'd like to ask Mats from GSMA to come in and talk to us about what needs to be done to get there.
Okay, thank you very much, Bettina. It's an honor to be here, I must say. However, it's a very scary 1 minute and 56 seconds left that is flashing in my eyes. I'll try to speak. We GSMA, the mobile industry, we have created, I believe, a phenomenal enabling platform. In 20 short years, we have gone from only having 3% of the world's population connected to today, as Mr. Mehta said, 2/3 of the world's population do have a mobile phone. It's a phenomenal, awesome power we have, and we should be using it. And we heard several examples, the Agri application, we have Identity in Africa that is using mobile phones, which can be used on any technology. So the 5.6 billion people are users of that type of thing. However, to make sure that the digital economy is for all, we need to look at the broadband capability. And we know that people are accessing internet through this device. That is the predominant way of accessing internet. Half of the world's population, pretty accurate, 3.2 billion people are today accessing internet on a mobile device. So we still have 50% to go. So for all, we have a long journey left. So why is that? Well, it's basically 4 things, and I think Mr. Mehta alluded to all 4. The first is skills. I do not know how to use this device. The second thing is affordability. I know how to use it, but I don't have enough money. And obviously there is a coverage gap as well, which is not that great. It is you know, 1/3 or maybe even less than that. We estimated roughly 1 billion people out of the 3.2 billion people that still needs to access internet does not have coverage. So sure, there is a coverage gap. But the 4th and maybe most important one is I know how to use it, I have enough money, there is coverage here, but there's just nothing there for me. There is no content that is local and relevant to me. So I think, again, back to the agriculture applications, back to government activities like Nandan has done with the Aadhaar in India, to make sure that people have an identity, people understand how to access internet and find appropriate applications is key. And I also believe, now since my time is up, that the roundtable like this is critical to change the trials that we're doing. We need to move into a more systemic change. And the way of doing that is to have roundtable discussions across several different sectors, the private sectors, the public sectors, the NGO community. We all need to share the same vision. That's how we can weave a strong future, basically, and make sure that everyone is part of the digital economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It definitely requires a coalition of the willing. So great. I'd like now to invite the governor of the Central Bank of Tunisia, Mr. Marwan Abbasi, to share with us the experience of Tunisia.
Thank you, Bettina. I really appreciate what was said before. I think it's very interesting for all of us. What I think I have 2 minutes. I need to talk about what we are doing in the central bank, perhaps. In Tunisia, we have a Ministry of Digital Economy and International and Information Technology, which is really important. And last year we issued a very important law named the Startup Act law. And it's very important in Tunisia because we are thinking that the new economy is important, first of all, to bring and to permit to create more jobs and sustainable jobs, but also to be able also to maintain our intelligence in our country, because we are during the last 10 years we are feeling that our intelligence is moving outside our countries, not only in Tunisia but in the region and in Africa. And I think with the the Startup Act, it's important, to create new firms and new jobs and sustainable jobs. In the central bank, last week we issued a very important law, but also a very important, let's say, regulation on the exchange rate. Then I think now, as you know, it's very difficult for us, to navigate through these very difficult regulation on exchange rate. And in the central bank, we issued a very important regulation dealing with the exchange rate. And for the coming, let's say, weeks, I'm sure the new startup in Tunisia will be able to do their jobs from Tunisia, as is the case for in all other countries in the world. And that's, I think, it's I think it's a major achievement we have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbasi. Yes, digital can be an amplifier, an equalizer, and may help people stay home and help the issue of the brain drain. Thanks for sharing this with us. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Don Kanak, Chairman of Eastspring Investment, to share with us their experience about digital financial services and getting the unbanked and the underserved to be part of the digital economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be able to share. Eastspring Investments is the Asia-based asset management business of Prudential PLC of the UK. Prudential has been in Asia for over 90 years and is one of the region's largest life and health insurers and long-term investors with a presence in 14 markets. We also have a growing presence in 5 countries in Africa. I want to share a couple of examples from our group how an international life and health insurer can help drive digital innovation in emerging markets and increase access not just to financial services, but also to health services. For example, in Ghana, Prudential now underwrites 1.7 million microinsurance customers through the Bima Tigo platform. Most of these customers have never owned any insurance cover before. Policymakers and regulators in Ghana have made inclusion a key pillar of their insurance strategy and have supported Prudential's collaboration with a telecommunications provider using airtime, not mobile money, as the means for the customers to pay for their insurance coverage. Here in Asia, Prudential recently announced an exclusive partnership with Babylon Health, a leading UK-based provider of AI-powered digital mobile health information and services. This alliance covers up to 12 markets, including Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries. Better access to affordable health and wellness information and health services is important, as in some Asian countries, still many people lack access to affordable quality care, and other countries in the region face aging populations and escalating medical costs. These are all pressing issues that governments and citizens need to tackle. We believe that an AI-powered digital platform can help with both affordability and access, and we're looking to partner with organizations, both public and private, to make this service available to as many people as possible. Finally, all of these initiatives require investment, both physical infrastructure, communications, cell networks, as we mentioned before, as well as social infrastructure, education, hospitals, medical tech, and other kinds of service companies. The insurance industry has an important role to play as a long-term investor, including in infrastructure. And to this end, Prudential and Eastspring are working with the IFC, with the Sustainable Development Investment Partnership, and other private and public organizations, both on infrastructure investment and on enhancing the investment environment for infrastructure. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and we look forward to collaborating going forward.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask Mr. Shay Babad, Director General, Ministry of Finance of Israel, to share with us the experience on entrepreneurship and innovation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you all colleagues here for the inspiring roundtable that we're having here today. In 1774, James Watt invented the steam engine, and people predict that that was probably what changed the economy, changed the way we commute, changed the way our industry manufacture. And some people tend to say that digital economy is doing the same thing to the economy today. In Israel, we look at digital economy as one of the main drivers of our growth. We invest more in R&D as a percentage of GDP more than any other country in the world. We have more startups per capita than any other nation in the world. And we put a great emphasis on technological education and training, where it comes from high school to our academics and also through our defense security systems, which we emphasize on that a lot. In 1966, Sir Charles Kao from Hong Kong, who just recently passed away, invented the fiber optics. This has been a great change, tremendous change in transferring data. In Israel today, we have a national project in which we deploy fiber optics through the whole country in order to multiply the pace and the amount of data in which we can move and the velocity of it. And we think that putting down that infrastructure is also part of how we can get more innovative and how we can push technology further. I would like to take 2 points, and with that to conclude. One regarding cyber security. Israel, I think, is one of the most leading countries in cybersecurity today. More than 15 to 20% of global investments in cybersecurity are done in Israel, where we are only 0.1% of the world. That's about 150 to 100 our size. And we put a lot of emphasis today because when we look at financial services, when we look at any services, people want their data to be protected. People want to know that their personal information is not being used in any way that wasn't permitted before. And the second issue that I would like to talk about, because I'm running out of time, is fintech. Also, when it comes to fintech, which is another field in digital economy, which is a new field in digital economy, we have recently legislated a sandbox in order to learn what kind of policies, what kind of regulation we need in order to make sure that fintech innovation is flourishing and taking place in Israel as well. We've signed a couple of agreements with several countries, such as Switzerland and others, in order to promote fintech. And I think that this field is going to be another field in which Israel is going to be a pioneer and excel at. Last but not least, the bureaucracy of all of it. When we talk about governments, we should look about how it's like a Hoover Dam. Instead of flooding us with bureaucracy and drowning us with innovation, we should find the right balance of where it passes of how we actually in government with the right policies and the right legislation enable innovation instead of stopping it or fearing it. And I think that this is one of the greatest challenges of all governments, and it has been a challenge also in the Israeli government, to make sure that we not interfere. We tend to say that everything that we accomplished when it comes to innovation and technology is in spite of the government and not due to the government. And the way to keep it forward is to keep up the pace with enabling regulation and enabling legislation that will promote that. And finally, I will just use His Excellency President Jokobo, I think, if I'm getting his name right, of Indonesia, who said that we should go through collaboration and cooperation. So I'm inviting every one of the colleagues here to Israel to collaborate and to cooperate, to share the knowledge that we have when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to fintech or any kind of advanced technologies, to share with everybody in this table today. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I'd like to ask Mr. Mohammed Kayoumi, Acting Minister of Finance of Afghanistan, to share with us Afghanistan experience on digital economy.
Thank you very much, and thanks for all of the insightful comments of all of the other speakers. In Afghanistan in 2002, we had 64 cell phones, and contrary to the projections of all of the Western experts, that the market is only 400,000 cell phones. Within 10 years, we had over 22 million cell phones, or over 88% penetration. Today, we have changed some of the laws, so we broke the government's monopoly on the ownership of the fiber, and that has brought private sector investment, and now over 80% of the provinces are connected. We started working with, we started our efforts mostly on the higher and the educational part. We've partnered with MIT edX for all of their higher education side, and also we're partnering with IIT Mumbai on the talking tutorial, and also the Swayam platform, thanks to the generosity of Indian government, so we can use those ones for higher education as well as technical programs. But what I would like to do is to pose 4 questions in terms of what, this forum that and look at some of the cross-cutting issues that World Bank is looking at. I mean, to what extent we can really look at issues such as network neutrality, interoperability, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and hyperconnectivity, how all of these ones, the collective impact of these ones can really bring the issues. In terms of the human capital side, how we will really address the issues of 4 key technologies, namely nanotechnology, biotechnology, infotechnology, and cognotechnology. And thirdly, our colleague from Israel brought the issue of cybersecurity and articulated quite well. That is one of the, I recall last year attended the Munich Security Conference, and the view of everybody was almost giving up that they cannot really address this one. I think without addressing that, both from a data confidentiality as well as cybersecurity, that would really be a hamper in terms of moving forward. And lastly, this is with all of due respect and look at it as a constructive criticism, to what extent World Bank is really ready to take such a decision. When an organization, to look at 2018 technologies, while as an organization, World Bank is really operating with bureaucratic processes of 1960s and with the paradigm of post-World War II. To what extent are they really coming up and really adopting a digital frame of reference? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the World Bank is also migrating to the 4th Industrial Revolution, and we'll get a chance later to update you on how our thinking is changing and how digital technology in the bank is no longer seen as the cherry on the cake. So this is something that we're working very closely with our governments to make sure that this is part of how we think about development. But thank you very much for highlighting the cybersecurity to you and to the earlier speaker. It's a very important topic. I'd like now to call Mr. Mahesh from Google to talk to us about the Next Billion initiative. The floor is yours, Mahesh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for organizing such a beautiful event and having us as well over here. I come from a team called Next Billion User. We've actually named a team internally in Google called Next Billion User, which is focused on getting the next few billion users online and trying to drive various initiatives both on the existing Google products as well as looking at new initiatives and new products that we can build where we can help get these people online. I would like to touch upon 2 points. One, Mr. Nandan made around how the digital stack or the India stack that has been built in India and how Google is working with them to build services that would enable both digital and financial inclusion. We've worked with the UPI infrastructure in India and built a product called Tez, which now has been rebranded as Google Pay, which takes the infrastructure that has been built by Google, the government of India. And as Mr. Nandan said, we've written a software on top of it, which enables peer-to-peer and peer-to-merchant payments directly linking to the banks because credit card penetration in these markets is still very, very low, or in this region is still very low. That is a good example of how we're working with the government infrastructure and taking the services to the users, which has now driven is helping drive financial inclusion even in the remote villages and towns where there is some bit of smartphone penetration and a good connectivity or a decent enough connectivity available. The other initiative is something that Rudiantara shared, where a lot of governments are taking initiatives on laying out fiber and connecting different towns and villages. We are working with the Thai ICT Ministry and CAT Telecom, which is a public company in Thailand, which has laid down around 14,000 kilometers of fiber connecting various towns and villages, thousands of towns and villages in Thailand. We've partnered with them, and where we will be working with CAT Telecom, providing public Wi-Fi across, not only in the metros and towns, but also in the villages, that will be completely free, available for the users to access internet. So those are a couple of the initiatives that we've been driving on working with different government infrastructure organizations as well as regulatory and policymakers, and trying to influence or drive both financial and digital inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahesh. I'd like to ask Smart Africa. So Phil, if you can share with us the vision of Africa going fully to digital economy.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Smart Africa was started in 2013 by 7 heads of state under the chairmanship of President of Rwanda, Kagame. But now we've grown to 24 countries, covering a population of 600 million. And our objective is to bring everyone and accelerate the digital transformation of the continent. We want to ride on Africa as a single digital market. And we believe that success is going to depend on 3 important things. Number 1 is leadership. The leaders of Smart Africa are very committed. The heads of state, the presidents themselves, they sit on our board. Number 2 is partnership. I can see in this room some of our members, Government of Tunisia, but also GSMA, Orange, World Bank, and we call on all other partners who believe that the future of Africa is not in its natural resources, but in its human resources. It's on technology, it's on data-driven economies than natural resources. The future also will depend on entrepreneurship. So I was really fascinated to hear how the government of Indonesia is focused on nurturing the next generation of unicorns. This is something that Africa should learn from, and we want to work with you on that. And finally, we believe that it will also depend on the right platforms being in place, continental platforms. Africa is 54 markets. We can't compete globally if we are not able to come together in terms of ID, trade, payment, connectivity, content, and so on. You wanna know more? Join us next May 8th to 10th, 2019 in Kigali during the next Transform Africa Summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Phil, also for highlighting the importance of a regional approach, because it's a sector that requires that we think big and act big. So thank you very much. I'd like to invite Mr. Matthew Rycroft, Permanent Secretary from the UK DFID, to talk, a great partner in this agenda, to talk to us about DFID digital economy strategy and how DFID can help with this vision on digital economy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the World Bank's leadership on this agenda. There are a lot of partners of DFID around the room, including GSMA and Gates Foundation, and we are very proud of this work. The DFID strategy is called Doing Development in a Digital World, and I hope that sums up that this is not about adding a digital plank to the other planks on health and education and agriculture and so on. Mm-hmm. It's about making sure that everything is done digitally if we are a development donor like DFID. And that's what we're trying to do. I think there have been some successes already, and we've heard some compelling examples earlier today about mobile ID, that we could also have heard about mobile money, mobile energy, and it's to hear about them. But yet we must understand that what we have done has not had the transformative impact that it needs to do. The development dividends from technology are spreading far more slowly than the technology itself. And so for all of the digital progress in recent years, and indeed the whole technology transformation over the last couple of 100 years, there are still 700 million people living in extreme poverty. So the next phase of this work has got to involve really focusing on them and making sure that what is potentially going to increase exclusion actually increases inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call another partner on this agenda, Mr. Mark Sussman from the Gates Foundation.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks, Ed. It's great to see so many partners around the room. The Gates Foundation has been pursuing a digital strategy for how we can improve health and development, and particularly financial inclusion, for some time, and have really learned a huge amount from partnering with partners like Nandan Nilekani and the great work that's been done on Aadhaar and the Infosys stack that we've been working across countries with Kenya, Tanzania, Indonesia. Minister Rudy's very inspiring remarks there about the depth and reach of penetration in digital financial services. I believe Indonesia has actually been the fastest growing in terms of improving access to digital financial services over the last 4 years, as captured by the Global Findex that we helped do along with the World Bank. And so it's great to have a moment like this where we have a mixture of private sector, public sector, and practitioners really thinking through the full ramifications for digital economy for all, because it really is, we think, the most powerful single tool available to push forward in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why we have Melinda Gates both co-chairing the UN High-Level Panel on Digital Cooperation with Mr. Jack Ma that Minister Astrup referred to, but also co-chairing the Pathways for Prosperity Commission along with Her Excellency Sri Mulyani Indrawati, the Indonesian Finance Minister, and Strive Masayiwa of Econet Wireless, which is really all focused on the potential to use innovation, particularly digital innovation, to drive development further. I don't need to repeat the numbers of how many people are still without that access, but I think we see very encouraging examples of both an urgency from government regulatory authorities in terms of enabling and allowing for experimentation to accelerate this progress, and from our perspective and the commitment from the Gates Foundation is to really continue to work and expand that, particularly in Africa, with the new Digital Economy for Africa partnership with the World Bank. Thank you.
Much for that, and thank you very much for everyone for being extremely good with time. So we get to the end of our session, and I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie van Friedberg, who is the Chief Operating Officer of IFC, to help us summarize all of this and, you know, get us to the next level. Thanks.
So, Bhuthena, thank you. Atul, thank you. This was an incredible thing to have organized, I think, and a great follow-on to the conversation that we had in the spring on our Digital for Africa. And thank all of you for attending. I find that the annual and spring meetings are always very frenetic, and the opportunity in a few instances to take that step back and think strategically is very helpful. And I think that today gave us an opportunity to do that. And if I've heard anything over the course of the last few days and what we're going to hear over the course of the next few days is really that the future is going to be defined by technology and human capital. And creating a digitally ready or creating a digital economy is really going to define the haves and the have-nots. It's going to get to the question of whether or not we get inclusion or exclusion. And I think, as Nandan said, whether or not we actually create the pathway to prosperity. So what I think Atul set the stage very well, and he pulled together something that we had been asking ourselves as development practitioners, which was, how do we actually create that leapfrog? And I think our conclusion originally was that we need to create a holistic ecosystem, and that ecosystem has to include affordable infrastructure. I was actually struck that our Israeli colleague was actually talking about broadband fiber for velocity. So it's not just in the poorest countries in the world, but it's every country in the world that needs to be thinking about, do they have the right digital infrastructure? We talked a lot about analog skills and this idea about, do we have the digital fluency in our citizens to be able to operate ID4D platforms, and the need for services to be built on top of that. And then eventually the digital ecosystem, or the digital entrepreneurial ecosystem that will grow around that. But I think together with that, to kind of kickstart that whole ecosystem, to build it, to make it grow and flourish, what I heard everybody talk about today was a very broad coalition and the need for collaboration. And if I can take anything away from Silicon Valley, it's that people collaborate, and we need to figure out collectively how to collaborate better, both on the public and the private side. I think from our 4 speakers, I heard maybe for the first time and loudly, and then for everyone else who spoke, a beginning of a convergence around what we need to be focusing on. So again, this idea of skills, platforms, financial inclusion, and infrastructure. I think Nandan did a very good job of creating more nuance to the idea of an Indian stack, and this idea that there are public pieces that need to be created that create digital foundations as an example, and then to that digital foundation you can glue financial inclusion, you can glue mobile accounts, anything that you want to make happen. And then I think about what Eric told us. So I look at the dichotomy between the 2 pieces that Eric told us. So he started out talking about how Ant is using blockchain for lots of different purposes, but the most important of which is to solve a really important development problem, which is remittances. So they've gotten to a point in terms of the development of their digital infrastructure, their skill sets, and all of the things they need in China to begin to think about remittances. And then he flipped the switch and said, and when I went to Africa, what did I not find? I didn't find digital infrastructure. So he knew he had to go back and begin to build the digital infrastructure to then layer the financial inclusion on top of that. And I think the thing that companies like Ant will be able to bring us is the data and the size of the data and the algorithms to be able to apply financial inclusion in some of our most difficult markets. And I love his 10 by 1,000, and we will certainly be helping with skill sets on that. And then from Bukalapak, I think we heard a lot about exactly what we've been talking about flipped on top, so flipped upside down, so the private sector to the public sector, the snowball effect and what we can create. And I think actually what struck me, Atul and I were in San Francisco last week, and I did an interview with Andy Dunn, who's the CEO of Bonobus, which is the online retailer for men. And the thing he said is, we realized we had to backward integrate into bricks and mortar. And I heard exactly the same thing from our Indonesian colleagues. So digital platforms work, but you also need bricks and mortar to actually bring everybody into your ecosystem. And finally, the minister, it was very good to hear you talk again about infrastructure and the importance of infrastructure, but I also really appreciated your notion of coalition, being an accelerator, helping grow the digital economy. And then you introduced this idea of how do we create the next unicorn and how do we pull VCs in from around the world. And then finally, I think the thing that struck me and where I think we need to go back and reflect as the World Bank Group is that our concept of an ecosystem does not include the word data. And I was struck by several different comments on data. So the importance of building data for learning and algorithms. So if we think about what Ant Finance has been capable of doing with their data, if we think about data security and the need for the emphasis on data security, and maybe even most importantly, this idea that data for empowerment and data to create a digital economy, AI, and how Prudential and eSpring are using. So I actually think there's something about a data-driven economy that's maybe even more than a digital economy that we need to come back. And I would actually recommend that maybe in our next session at the spring meetings, we have a conversation about data. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Buthena. Thank you, Atul. It was excellent.